The courtroom was completely silent. You could feel the weight of the moment in the air. Every pause, every word spoken, and every argument presented carried serious consequences. This was not just about Julius Malema as an individual anymore. This was about the future of his political career and what kind of message this case would send. The question of guilt had already been settled. That part was over. Now, everything depended on what would happen to him next. The decision being made would change his life entirely. It was about punishment, but more than that, it was about survival, political survival, personal survival, and symbolic survival. On Friday, something major unfolded at the East London Regional Court. A new figure stepped into the spotlight in the case involving the economic freedom fighters leader. This person did not rely on slogans or emotional speeches. She did not use dramatic political language to gain attention. Instead, she was calm, precise, and carefully chosen in her words. Her name is Jessie Thompson. She is a legal professional with years of experience in the courtroom, and she is now the key person trying to keep Julius Malema out of prison. Jessie Thompson appeared in court with one clear mission: to argue why Malema's sentence should be reduced. She presented a structured and deliberate strategy. She acknowledged that Malema's crimes were serious, but insisted that sending him to prison would not be just or appropriate. Thompson made her position very clear. She believed Malema should not be jailed. Instead, she argued that he should receive a heavy fine that reflected the seriousness of his actions. According to her plan, Malema would not even have to pay that fine if he followed the law and behaved properly moving forward. This meant he would still be punished, but not through imprisonment. He would remain accountable for his actions without being locked behind bars. Thompson emphasized that this approach would still hold him responsible, while avoiding the long-term damage of a prison sentence. In her view, justice did not require jail time, it required accountability. But Thompson did not stop there. She wanted additional measures to ensure that something like this would never happen again. She suggested extra safeguards, including restricting Malema from applying for a firearm license for a certain period. This, she argued, would serve as a constant reminder that he was under scrutiny and that any further wrongdoing would carry serious consequences. She believed this restriction would act as a strong deterrent against future misconduct. Thompson also proposed that Malema should be required to donate money to Gun Free South Africa, an organization dedicated to reducing gun violence in the country. The group focuses on preventing the use of firearms to harm others, and her suggestion was meant to turn his punishment into something that could benefit society as a whole, rather than simply destroying his future. The idea behind this proposal is actually very direct and powerful. If a crime involves a gun, then the response should aim to reduce gun violence itself, not simply punish the person involved and move on. Gun Free South Africa plays a key role here because its entire mission is to make the country safer by limiting the use of firearms and preventing them from being used to harm others. As Thompson continued reading from the pre-sentencing report, Malema sat quietly in the dock, listening as his life was being analyzed in detail. The court discussed his personal history, his character, and what kind of future he might still have in politics. Everything was being weighed carefully, balancing the demands of the law with the possibility of rehabilitation. The question was not just how to punish him, but how to deal with him as a person within society. Malema is facing 5 criminal charges, all linked to a single incident that happened back in 2018. That incident took place during the Economic Freedom Fighters' birthday celebrations in Duncan Village. What happened that day has been widely discussed both in public and in court. The entire case traces back to that moment. There is a video that many people have seen. In it, Malema is firing a gun into the air while supporters cheer around him. They are wearing red berets, shouting, celebrating, and treating the moment like a political spectacle. At the time, it looked dramatic, even revolutionary. But now that same footage is being used as key evidence in a serious criminal case against him. Thompson acknowledged that the convictions themselves are serious. She did not try to downplay them. However, she highlighted something she believes is critically important. A long period of time passed between the incident and the final conviction. In sentencing law, this delay matters. She argued that it becomes harder to justify a harsh punishment when so many years have passed, especially if the person has not committed any further crimes. She told the court that Malema has stayed out of legal trouble since 2018. According to her, this should carry real weight. The fact that he has not repeated the same behavior in all these years is, in her view, a positive sign. She pointed out that Malema is constantly in the public eye, involved in political conflict and controversy, yet he has not been charged with similar offenses again. For Thompson, this shows restraint and growth, and it should count for something in his favor. She argued that the absence of repeat behavior is not a small detail. It is an important factor when deciding whether someone is likely to offend again. Thompson believes that this record should influence the court's decision on sentencing. Then she addressed a more sensitive issue, Malema's continued claim of innocence. Normally, when someone maintains their innocence after being found guilty, courts see that as a risk factor. It suggests a lack of remorse, and it can imply that the person might repeat the offense. But Thompson asked the magistrate to view Malema's situation differently. She said that Malema understands one crucial thing. If he is officially found guilty of a crime, it directly damages his image as a political leader who claims to stand for law and order. Malema's claim of innocence is something he still holds on to, and Thompson wanted the magistrate to understand what that really means for him. She argued that if he genuinely understands the situation and the consequences of his actions, then he is far less likely to repeat them. That awareness alone, she said, makes a real difference. In her view, understanding leads to change, and change reduces the risk of future wrongdoing. Thompson told the court that the fact Malema gets it now is important. It suggests that he has reflected on what happened and is unlikely to behave the same way again. She believed this should reassure the court that he does not pose an ongoing threat. One of the more interesting arguments she made was about Malema's political identity. She described him as a revolutionary figure, someone who naturally challenges authority and questions established systems. She was careful not to excuse his behavior, but instead tried to explain the context. According to Thompson, Malema's political style is built around confrontation, disruption, and pushing boundaries. This, she said, is why he often finds himself surrounded by controversy and legal attention. She explained that someone like Malema will always generate conflict because of the way he does politics. He provokes, he challenges, he unsettles those in power. But she made a clear distinction between political activism and criminal behavior. Being loud, controversial, or offensive is not a crime. The law only steps in when actual legal boundaries are crossed. Political figures are allowed to upset people, divide opinions, and cause tension. It only becomes a legal issue when their actions clearly break the law. Thompson then focused on how the charges should be viewed. She reminded the court that all 5 convictions came from a single incident, not from repeated patterns of behavior. This was not a series of ongoing offenses over many years. It was one event that escalated and turned into a major legal problem. She argued that this should matter when deciding on punishment. She also pointed out that in the video, Malema did not load the firearm himself. While this did not erase responsibility, she felt it was still relevant context. Thompson urged the court to consider all 5 charges together instead of stacking them individually. Treating them separately, she argued, could make the sentence appear more severe than what is fair. Looking at them as a whole would allow for a more balanced and realistic judgment. After covering the legal arguments, Thompson shifted to Malema's personal life. She spoke about his childhood and how he grew up learning the importance of family. Even now, she said, he remains close to his family, and they continue to support him during difficult times. She described him as someone who has been through hardship but refused to let it destroy him. According to Thompson, Malema developed resilience from a young age. He learned how to stay strong under pressure and how to think clearly when facing problems. She suggested that these same qualities can be seen in his political journey. Rising from a difficult background to become the leader of a major political party, she argued, is evidence of discipline, mental strength, and determination. Despite where he started, he managed to build a powerful political career, and that, in her view, is not a small achievement. These qualities are exactly what helped him succeed. Malema is now 44 years old, and this is the first time in his life he has faced serious trouble with the law. The incident happened when he was 37. In the 5 years since then, Malema has followed legal procedures and cooperated with the authorities. He did not try to escape responsibility. He did not go into hiding. He did not challenge the legitimacy of the court or show disrespect for the legal process. Thompson argued that punishment is not only about being sent to prison. She said Malema has already suffered in many other ways. His reputation has been damaged, and the public now knows about his actions. He has lived for years with uncertainty, not knowing what his future would look like. That kind of psychological pressure, she said, is also a form of punishment. She told the court that pain does not only exist in handcuffs and prison cells. Pain can take many forms. It can be emotional, social, and mental. It can be the pain of loss, the pain of shame, or the pain of having your identity questioned in public. These kinds of suffering are real, even if they are not visible. Looking at everything together, Thompson insisted that Malema is not likely to offend again. She was confident about this. In her view, helping Malema learn from his mistake and guiding him toward better behavior is far more beneficial for society than simply locking him away in prison. But the state is not backing down. After Thompson finished her argument, the state prosecutor, Joel Caesar, stood up to challenge her position. This made it clear that the prosecution does not want leniency for Julius Malema. For the state, this case is not just about one man. It is about sending a message. South Africa is struggling with extreme levels of gun violence. People are shot and killed every day. Armed robberies are common, cash-in-transit heists happen regularly, and illegal firearms are widespread in many communities. The state wants to fight this crisis, and that is why they are treating the Malema case so seriously. From the state's perspective, when a powerful political leader fires a gun in a public space, the punishment must be meaningful. It cannot be symbolic or light. They believe that someone with influence must face real consequences, not just a warning or a small penalty. In their view, a public figure must be held to an even higher standard. The court now stands at a critical turning point. If it chooses one path, Malema will likely go to prison. This would mean the end of his parliamentary career and could destabilize the economic freedom fighters. The political landscape would shift permanently. If the court chooses the alternative path, Malema will receive a special sentence. He will pay fines, follow strict conditions, and take steps to repair the harm he caused. He would still be punished, but he would remain active in politics. The judges must now decide what kind of justice they believe in. Their decision will reach far beyond the walls of the East London Regional Court. For the EFF, this is about leadership and survival. For Julius Malema, this is about legacy. Will he be remembered as a revolutionary who crossed the line, or as a leader who faced the law and continued his fight within it? And for South Africa, an even bigger question remains. Can justice balance accountability with context, even when the person on trial is one of the most powerful and controversial voices in the country? As the cross-examination continues, one thing is clear. This case is no longer just about Julius Malema. It is about the fragile line between punishment and power.